We're usually late because I'm late, but today I can tell you that it's not me. Although people often call me the late Gary Stein, it's not because of the fact that I'm dead.
What are you talking about? We are late because of you.
Oh, yeah, but where's Chris?
Well, it doesn't matter. You're the guy that does the
Oh,
intro.
if that's the introduction time, then it's Sunday and time to jump with both feet into the rotation.
Marijuana in my soul, marijuana in my heart.
From 1714 East 7th Street in Ybor City, where it all began, this is your Sunday church. This is your rotation. I am Gary Stein, your political director of Suncoast NORML. Thank you, virtual crowd. I appreciate that. And I am the official master of public health of our 2 out of 3 trio today. And to my right, your left, is our deputy director, Carlos Jose Armida, and our official full Cuban. No, he's Cuban and in lineage, but if he wasn't atheist, he'd be eating salami with it.
What the fuck?
No, actually,
you're confusing my vegetarianism with my atheism.
Is that what it is? I thought all atheists were vegetarian.
No, that they are mutually exclusive.
Just so you know, he is atheist because of his biting admiration to rock. Isn't that right?
What the fuck?
Anyways, we have had a number of things going on with the cannabis industry, and we're going through changes like we have from the very beginning. And we've gone through so many changes, it's almost hard to collect them. Our friend Ron Watson, when he goes out and starts giving a history of the cannabis program in Florida, his 5-minute presentation is now like a half hour before he even gets past the first year or so. But one of the presidents that have been there from the very beginning is our guest today, Senator Jeffrey Brandis of St. Petersburg. Jeffrey, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, thank you.
I always figured it was important for you to get involved in this industry because for those people who are into the history of this whole thing, originally when we had the Unified States Act, before we had the Cannabis Act of, rather Marijuana Act of 1937, there was this unification of states out in the West to try to make it illegal state by state. And that was funded by William Randolph Hearst in the timber industry. So wouldn't it be ironic that somebody would actually regulate it and legalize it here in the present who has family involved in the lumber industry?
That's right.
To an extent.
to a large extent, yeah. That's what we do.
Everything comes back full circle.
Yeah, Jeffrey's family is involved in a huge lumber industry for multi-generational. Just like a lot of the farmers that are trying to get involved in the business here are multi-generational and they're having trouble moving forward. We have had Jeff here kind of like moving the industry along from the very beginning. How did you get swept into cannabis issues? Was it Matt Gates who helped you along?
A libertarian, I would say. And so, for me, this is kind of like the perfect issue to get involved. Adults make adult decisions and personal freedom and individual responsibility. So as somebody who look in and tries to do that in every area of public policy, this is the perfect policy area to get involved in and try to figure out how many areas of public policy are there that are totally like green fields to work in. And the green fields, because there really was no foundational policy to allow this in the state. And so we had to design it.
So you basically had a blank slate to draw from.
Yeah, they had a blank slate.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I said we had a blank slate that we drew.
And we had other states that actually did it. The question was whether they did it right. We heard all these talk and still hear talk about the wild West. Even Massachusetts was when they started doing legalization before we did, I suppose. But I was wondering, how do you conflate being a libertarian with having to spend a good portion of the time creating regulations?
Well, I mean, the question question fundamentally isn't about the regulations; it's about the right. And so Florida chose to use this vertical integration model that I would argue doesn't work. One that I argue that should be done away with. Right, this forced vertical integration, and a scheme that I think has become a disaster. You know, if you want to go to a place where there's not enough product, where there isn't competition, where there isn't real consumer, the medical marijuana industry in Florida. In many jurisdictions, there's maybe one, maybe two providers. There really isn't a lot going of differentiation between the product, but there's a lot of competition or frankly even supply that's been normalized. And so that, because of the crazy vertical integration structure that the legislature put in place a decade ago.
Now, we've always felt that cannabis is a bipartisan issue, in part because if you poll the populace, they are bipartisan about this. We have just as many folks on the right as the left who want to see this legalized, at least medically, if not for adult use.
Right.
And yet we still have partisanism in many legislatures across the country. I mean, South Dakota is a part and parcel of that, where they voted in a ballot initiative that was actually voted down by the legislature and by the executive branch. Did you see partisanism as a major block to getting?
No, I see courage as a major block to doing anything. This is an issue that isn't a partisan issue at all. It just has to actually fix it, and it takes the courage of leadership to actually allow the fix to happen. This is a courage issue.
It always seemed to me that conservatives should be championing this issue. So I really appreciate you for the words you're saying, man. But Gary says that this, and both of you guys are really like pushing that this isn't a partisan issue, and I agree. I think both Republicans and Democrats want to see cannabis legalized, but how it's regulated is definitely partisan, and I definitely see the Republicans in the state looking for big cannabis to be a part of the movement, and it's in direct contradiction with their core beliefs. And I thank you really for standing up and for really representing, how this should happen. This should be a free system. This should be vertical integration. Really is screwing up everything when it comes to cannabis in the state. And I really thank you for that. But it does seem weird. So like with what Biden came out with recently, saying that governors should reassess how everything's going on. And I swear I'm going to be done in a second. What do you think about Biden and coming out saying that, and what do you think our chances of Desantis playing along?
Well, I think the chances are zero. I think the Biden did was not so much the getting rid of the penalty. I think it was mostly that there were the discussion about rescheduling. I think long term that's going to have a lot we need to see. Once we deschedule, then it's then we can have a much broader conversation, because it allows the system, and it really begins to legitimize the whole operation against versus the federal background of Schedule 1 drug.
I mean, I realize that we still have a federal system, especially when it comes to cannabis is concerned. We have a crazy quilt of different regulations across the country, every state doing their own thing, basically.
Right.
And so I can get a uniform policy in regards to pardons and expungements, but it comes down to a human issue at the end of the day, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think at the end of the day, you should do it. I mean, to me, that's good criminal justice reform. Frees these people up to go on and live the rest of their lives, not to declare themselves a record or anything like that. So I think those are all positive things, and I think, frankly, it's just a mental shift as it comes to marijuana policy over the last few decades.
and of course we've seen some major shifts, at least on the public side. But there have been some legislation that's moved it forward. You did a fantastic job over these last almost 10 years now, working on the cannabis program. I remember when we first got the Amendment 2 finished, and there was a rush to do the best bill, essentially, to get the whole program started. There was the Brandis bill, and there was all the rest of them.
So we
And
worked out really,
unfortunately,
we worked really hard with the country to kind of identify the best practices from around the country and put them all in one place in one piece of legislation. One allowed for, I mean, it doesn't prohibit it, but it definitely says you don't have to do it. It allows for, I mean, the big problem we have with vertical integration is, listen, if McDonald's had to grow the cows and the tomatoes and everything else to, and the wheat to make a regular hamburger, like there would, and it would be super, that's just not what they do. Right. And so when you're forcing a marijuana, the supplier, the distributor, and many of them could be in that business, sure. But do they want to be in all portions of that business? No. The amount of capital required to be in the business is astronomical. I mean, you want to get in the marijuana, you better walk in the door with $40 million and have $40 million lined up behind it.
yeah, and that is an issue. I mean, and it continues to be an issue, in part because it's been such a long time since they actually have actually released any new licenses to create, not only to create competition, but to create new products out there and keep quality high. I mean, people really expected to get product out there like Ruth Chris Steakhouse, but we seem to be dealing with Taco Bell meat instead.
Yeah, well,
Which is
I'm not surprised.
That
This
ain't
is what
meat.
happens when you don't have competition in the marketplace.
That shit ain't meat.
that should make you happy though, doesn't it? You're at Taco Bell, you're not going to get any meat, so you're good. But we don't have a standard for quality unless there's some kind of profit motive in it. In a lot of the multi-state organizations that have included themselves in the marketplace, mostly by buying up licenses of places that decided that they weren't going to grow; they were just going to see what they could do to sell it, kind of like regifting on eBay.
Right. Yeah, listen, if you want to go back and do like a 30-second history lesson on this, it's pretty simple, right? The state out the gate, this was done by people who definitely inserted this language that said, well, these licenses have to go to people who've been in the business for 30 years. Any 101 attorney, first year law student would realize that, hey, listen, for 30 years, but not having been in the business for 30 years is to buy the shares of the company that was in the business for 30 years, for 30 years. And that's what they did. So they go out, and these guys go from, growing, whatever, sunflowers, but they have a marijuana license, and they were making $3 million of revenue before, and making $5. Now just the license alone is worth $10 million to their business. Their business off for just the license, not even caring about the sunflowers anymore. Now this company owns a license, and then they inject $30 million worth of capital to build the greenhouses, build the distribution and processing facilities that they need, and then they're in the business, and they can claim, hey, I was in the business, weren't, and that's not how it was sold to the legislature, but effectively they bought the shares. So for purposes of the law, they complied.
I mean, you and I talked about the fact that we need to find some way to keep these licenses from being peddled so quickly and so often, and conglomerating with out-of-state organizations. Because I'm certain that when you guys originally intended this to happen, it was to make Floridians be the drivers of the business and not out-of-state organizations.
I mean, I think originally passed, the intent of the people who inserted that language into the bill was to help. I mean, to be honest, I don't think it was to help Floridians or anything. What's effectively happened is I'm not sure, but a handful of people in Florida still companies anymore. For the vast majority of these companies are owned by large out-of-state capital to be in the business. And frankly, we've given out one minority license from South Park. We have to have one African American in the group, and that's just that's an affront on so many levels. One license is going to be good enough, and frankly, I wouldn't be surprised if the Pigfords went out and sold their license, right, cashed in on that, and just said, hey, well, we had a minority license, we're going to sell it because it's just it's a and they go out, they don't actually get the business, they just sell that license. But this is the problem. You basically can't be a small business and be in the marijuana business in Florida versus other states where all you want to do is process, right? We'll get it from everybody. We'll do the lab and we'll process it, turn it into whatever we're going to turn it into. You can't be in that business. You either have to be in all of them or none of them. Frankly, getting into all of them is virtually impossible.
I guess part of the problem we had is we went ahead and, in part because of the constitutional amendment that came from Amendment 2, we have a situation. Hold on a second. There you go.
I'll drink too.
Yeah, got to have my coffee con leche, otherwise my brain doesn't activate.
No, but this is definitely not the intention of United for Care.
No.
Yeah, like this. You have this whole like the Redner case that happened where it all came down to whether it was or and. And all these people arguing about it, and it's just absolutely ridiculous. The fact that this state doesn't look at states like Las Vegas and like how tourism could affect this state. Marijuana tourism could explode. Tourism is already such a huge part of the Florida economy. How could the Safe and Smart and Safe Act? How do you feel about this new petition initiative to legalize adult use in this state? Have you taken a look at it?
I haven't specifically taken a look at that, but I've previously supported other adult use cannabis petitions. I think even the medical marijuana industry wants it because based on what they can grow to, and they want a whole new market. And this is why the marijuana industry understands that vertical integration doesn't work. They're happy that basically let them run the first 3 laps of the 1 mile race already established in all these markets. But I think now what they would prefer to do is to free up some of the capital by selling off grow facilities and basically allowing them to be a variety of different lines if they choose to, versus being forced to do the whole thing. They just can't grow fast enough staying in just medical.
Yeah, the main criticism behind Smart and Safe is that it doesn't allow for home grow. But then again, like the petition initiative only has to be one
subject.
Yeah.
I agree. But home grow is the hardest part too.
Yeah, but there's also a petition initiative that's in the works. Like it's in the pipeline specifically for home grow. And I believe Smart and Safe Florida is helping to support that. I'm not entirely sure. But I mean,
so who's backing, Smart and Safe Florida? Is that the medical marijuana industry?
I think it's the
Truly
marijuana industry. Yeah, it's Truly.
Okay, so Truly's doing it. Of course, it's going to ban. Listen, they're not altruists here. Right? They're business people, right? They're a buck just like everybody else. And what's the biggest way for them to make a buck? Well, grow into the exponentially more customers and half the headache. And why wouldn't we do that when we're already in the thing? But listen, sometimes the Baptists and the bootleggers can figure out a way to get along, and maybe we can find a way to move this forward.
Well, I know that the person who is probably going to be in the spot of the Commissioner of Agriculture is one of your fellow Somalian warlords, so which means understands the mechanism of power and the individual freedom and things of that sort. He's an agricultural entrepreneur, you would think that that would mean he would be in favor of smaller entrepreneurs in the agribusiness, as opposed to just, well, Eggland's best. But do you see a change coming with the change in leadership there?
Not a good one. I think
I,
that I think that I mean, listen, you know, while I don't have issues in public policy, I think her and I are probably pretty well aligned on the marijuana policy, and wanting to see this market grow in Florida, and frankly, just getting government out of the way and letting. I think there is a way to do it that is the right way to do it. I think that you know, grow just throws out a whole bunch of issues that, frankly, I think the legislature would just find as a bridge to. Think that, you know, the legislature just doesn't really even want to talk about marijuana anymore. They did 2 years of it, and then they just said, we're not going to talk about it. And definitely the governor doesn't want presidential. He's got to win a presidential Republican primary. So I don't see him pushing for it at all. And I think that President Simpson will, you know, I help the industry nearly as much, unless it's probably helping the established industry.
And of course, I'm not sure, but we're going to see some seismic change in the way things are working, because we got new president of the Senate, we got new speaker coming up. Do you see any major changes there?
No, not at all. I mean, Gary, listen.
I was just being hopeful for a second, you know.
Yeah, but like, listen, Desantis is running for president in 2024. I mean, it's like the worst kept secret in Florida, right? And so you hold everything up to the light of what does this do for his presidential chances? Is not going to hurt him at all. I mean, doesn't hurt him. If he does something big, it'd be seen as hurting him in a Republican primary. He's not worried about the general. Honest, like, it is not the general election that he cares about. He's got to win Republican nominations amongst Republicans. That's what his concern is. That is why that's, you know, that is going on, and that's why the marijuana conversation will not go on.
I mean, they expect a lot of folks in the marijuana industry to be in a cannabis bubble, essentially, thinking that all the voters are single issue voters, which they're not. And they think it's the most important issue, which of course it's not, especially after the devastation of the last hurricane and this insurance ridiculous thing we got going in the state of Florida right now, as well as affordable housing also being an issue, also being these major issues. And of course, we do see that, however, that the cannabis industry does kind of creep into those issues in part when we're talking about, again, the expungements of records from personal possession, which oftentimes stops people from getting involved in these other things and helping out that kind of situation.
Listen, I think Republicans are going to come in with an overwhelming win in November. I mean, there's likely to come senators. They're going to have 2/3 majority in both chambers. And, you know, and I don't want to talk about marijuana at all. I mean, you're basically in marijuana stasis right now. I mean, this issue, they've had authorizations to issue these, 20 for years now, right? And the law says you should issue these licenses, and they can't even, right? And because, you know, we should be a world awash of licenses, and I think we'll licenses eventually, but nobody grows because they can't generate the kind of revenue because, again, they're 3 laps into a 1 mile race already.
And of course, we worked real hard to try to block these caps. Even President Simpson also worked hard to stop the caps from going down over the last couple of years. And yet, all of a sudden, there was an emergency rule that came out of nowhere that basically hit the industry in the back of the head. We didn't see it coming. So kudos to those guys who figured out how to do it without including us, as in your constituents and the rest of the state.
Well, I mean, I have
at least my input possible.
Sure. Well, look at how the administration's conversation has changed over time. Cartel, we should break up the cartel, and then it was, after that statement was made, silence with minor tinkering to the negative, right? Actually, in the tinkering that they did do, and then in the last 4 years, we've issued to the pig fertilizer license, or I mean, maybe they've issued others because the courts require. We have a couple for sale in there, or at least last year, or the year before, there was a couple for sale out of Georgia. No major new market entrants into the space, and it's because it's cost prohibitive. In some areas, are already getting the needs met, and they're already saturated, which is why people use, because they're realizing that there's a cap on what they can grow to in Florida.
And of course, we have the chaos theory, which means nature will always find a way to get around any issues, whether you want it to or not. And that seems to be the way the cannabis industry tends to grow. You might put a regulation in there; they will find a way around it. If profit is the ultimate motive, I rarely see anything where the patient is the actual goal. Being taken care of.
Basically the goal when writing this legislation was them kicking and screaming, right? Like they didn't want to do it; they were forced to and when they chose to do is put in the most restrictive, least consumer friendly possible for doing it. Like if you were going to write something that says, all right, just our cronies do it, and they're going to have the entire market of Florida defense legislatively for years and use the power of the law and our unlimited budget to do it out of this business, and we're going to make it really hard by limiting the amount of disease that even qualify for it. Then that's what the Florida legislature did, like taking the constitutional amendment and doing as much as you could statutorily to push back against it.
And we've seen a lot of pushback, and it's not you've termed out, and you're going to actually find yourself having more family time.
I got 24 days. I'm still in for 24 days. All the sands in the hourglass now.
I mean, 24 days is still plenty of time to cause as much trouble as possible, even off session.
It's true.
You never quite know. I mean, you could actually start transporting hemp across the lines by putting it in the pockets of Venezuelans, have to get it back from Martha's Vineyard afterwards. But we hope
that was an immigration joke.
Yeah, we'll get into that.
Senator Brandis, what are your plans after you're out of office?
Yeah, I was getting to that.
Yeah, so the things I've cared about just on what I was in the legislature over the last couple of years has really been criminal justice, property insurance, transportation, and housing policy as well. But I didn't go very far. So I think focus on those areas. Really want to. I'm starting in the process of starting a not really a think tank, but a area that's focused on best practices and trying to bring best practices to the legislature. I mean, I think what you said is nobody's bringing them the best ideas. They're getting spoon-fed a bunch of lobbyist ideas, but the best ideas, the staff isn't spending its time best working on the best ideas, and we've got to from around the country and bring them to Florida.
Now, I can't say that our state actually had any hand in it. I know that the person who won the mega ball lottery the other day actually came from Fort Myers, which so kudos to them for picking the right place to give out that award. Hopefully, that guy is going to be altruist and help out his country. But what did you think about the fact how they built that Sanibel Bridge back in only 3 days as a transportation guy?
Well, I mean, I think that's just great engineering, right? I mean, it just shows you, one, probably with the structural beams and the structural support were okay. And so really that was just bringing in I'm glad it happened. I think it's exciting. And it just shows that the ingenuity is things done when we really want to.
So was that a best practice? And the expediency in the way they had it done?
Yeah, absolutely. It seems like that was the best practice. Get much better than that.
I'm always concerned is, that the legislature are the best stewards as possible for our tax dollars. And then sometimes some years we're way ahead, and some years we're way short. We want to make certain that we get as much bang for our buck, and to see something like that happen is encouraging, because we've seen a lot of waste in the past.
No, I think there are areas. I think there are areas of policy where Florida gets its buck. Education is one area where I think it gets really good bang for its buck. There are places I think we get to system housing affordability. We are terrible at, like literally terrible policy. Property insurance, we're the worst in the country, and this is pocketbook issue. So I mean, I think there are tons of areas where we can get a lot better. Transportation. Florida is actually a leader in transportation. If you look at how we effectively we spend dollars, we're actually very good. And well, it's partly because they made this decision not to. I'm glad it's great that they chose not to tax it. They would have then seen the fruit of that tax, and they would have wanted to. They would have wanted to grow that base of tax, so it would have leaned them toward had they actually started taxing it.
Now, with our last couple of bad years, did you see real estate actually increasing in Florida, or are we still stuck on an economic model that's basically based on growth?
Yeah, we're absolutely stuck on well, I mean, entire history has been based on growth, right? So we've never known really a time where Florida decades has not grown, and we're growing exponentially now. Like 800 people a day, or even with the downturn, you're still seeing, hundreds and hundreds of people move to the state of Florida in other states, which is why I think our marijuana policies have to get better to reflect that. We should allow them to participate in the market as well without having to go see a new doctor. We should allow people in the country to use their medical marijuana cards in Florida, but Florida doesn't do that, and I don't know why.
Yeah, I was wondering that we have 120 million approximately tourists every year. I think that's what we're kind of hovering at, and yet we don't allow any of them to go ahead and access our market when they get here, and that leaves all the tax burden on the Floridians. Kind of like what happened in Orlando when they took away the Disney's treaty, so that Orange County and Osceola County would have to pick up the pace.
Well, they're not going to take away that treaty. Let's just be honest. Work it, but that thing ain't going away. I mean, give me a break. This was fire-ready aim. Like, let's shoot them, and then we'll figure out what we actually want to do. You understand that policy actually? That policy on Disney actually didn't do it, and they're going to do something down the road, but it isn't going to be what everybody thought they were going to do.
Well, that's good to hear. I mean, a lot of times there's a lot of these political moves are political as opposed to realistic. They're done for political purposes as opposed to actually trying to get things done, which drives me crazy, because we're trying to educate the public, and yet we can't tell them that what they see is exactly what's happening. An immigrant that's being pulled from Texas, it dropped off at in South Florida and then brought up to West, are not just doing tours of the Kennedy estates. They're actually being illegally moved for political reasons only. I just don't see any benefit to the state there. And yet,
well, I mean, there's a benefit to.
What was that?
Right. I mean, I said there's a Republican primary to be president of the United States, right? I mean, that's the benefit.
Yeah. To
the decision. Well, to the governor, right? But you got to hold every decision up to that light. Right. That's what's going on here. Like, does this help? Does this hurt? Right. This is what's stuck in stasis. This is why medical marijuana policy is stuck in stasis. This is why you're going to see major movement, probably as a special session before January, because he's kind of has to,
for the insurance purposes.
You could shut down the housing market of the state of Florida if you. This is quickly becoming the number one issue in the state.
I can tell you, my daughter had moved back in the house because her rent was changed from $1,200 a month to $2,100 a month, and so her and her roommate went back to
Listen,
the respective parents' houses.
This year's the issues on this year's public policy is property insurance and housing affordability. And then hurricane recovery and hurricane dollars, specifically because the Senate president was like she's going to put tons of focus on that, as she should. I'm not blaming for it. Those are I think the three primary areas of policy that are going to have to be addressed this year. Anything else, but I know those three will. They have to, right? You can't have rents, can't have property insurance going up exponentially, and you're going to have to ultimately rebuild where Ian was.
Well, I got to tell you, going back to Tallahassee and not getting a chance to hang out at your office and say hi to Vanessa and then throw a piece of legislation at us that may or may not ever get to the ground is going to be missed desperately. But you get a chance to actually get out of that seat and get a view from 10,000 feet. And I'm hoping that you'll be one of our better angels.
As a pilot, I literally hope it's from 10,000 feet. Yes, I'm excited to come back home. I'm excited to start working on my policy groups that I'm working on. I'm actually building, so I'm really focused on figuring that space out. The goal is to stay involved. If I have an addiction, it's public policy addiction. I love finding solutions for some of these things, and they're doable. And frankly, if Republicans would focus and realize that most young Republicans are libertarians and they just want smaller government, and they would versus the big government marijuana policies that we have in Florida today, we would be a lot better off.
So, Senator Brandis, I realize that there's no chance in the short term, but maybe down the road, maybe we could get you to run for governor.
We'll see what the future.
Hey, that's not a no. That's not a no.
No, I mean, we'll see if I ever would consider running. I don't think I would consider running for governor if that was even an option. My skill set would lean itself to, but I think there are great people out there that I would love to support for governor.
Cool. Do you have any endorsements for this election, or are you not allowed to ask?
No, listen, right now, I'm really just endorsing in the local area. What I see from polling and what I've seen from talking to kind of people in the know, that DeSantis is likely to win by 8 to 10 points, and if that happens, it's going to get a huge bump because people aren't going to vote for DeSantis and then go vote for go down ballot and not vote for other Republicans.
Well, I get scared about following polls because I see, the St. Petersburg poll doing one thing, and then other polls on the other side of the state seem to be totally diametrically opposed to that. And it all depends, I guess, on what data set you decide to adopt to put out your results.
Peter's polling is actually pretty good. So, I mean, I would, his polling is actually pretty good. I think that you're likely to see the Republicans come back with 2/3 majority, but I think you're likely to see the governor and all the cabinet positions run by Republicans happen. Like, if I was going to bet, whatever, like betting on that happening, I think that it's just the Democrats never had the resources, and frankly, it's always the party in power in Washington that has kind of the headwinds, and definitely they had the headwinds now between this and inflation and everything that Biden's doing. Republicans are going to clean up in Florida, probably more so than any.
Now, I agree.
Yeah. One quick initiative. One quick question. What of all the years that you worked in the legislature, both in the House and the Senate, are you the most proud of as far as developing policy?
I mean, most proud of that I was. What I'm most proud of is, frankly, that I was a voice of interest, that I wasn't tied to either party, that I was equally just as much or more of my Republican colleagues' policies, and frankly that and a lot of times, right? I mean, the amount of things that I voted against that ultimately got thrown out by the courts, or the amount of policies that I opposed that ultimately got passed under somebody else's name, but it. I mean, there's no greater kind of process than to see your policy ideas getting passed, even if it's not even your name on it. So the thing are a lot of the work that we've done that frankly has gone unseen. We have been a different voice and an independent voice in an otherwise chaotic, able to bring a calm and rational mind.
Well, you've been big into new technologies. I've been looking forward to autonomous cars in more than just St. Petersburg and the villages. And you were going in that direction, so I greatly appreciate that. Now you got to get into cloning because we got to get another Jeff Brandes in the Senate if you want to go ahead and do something else.
Good libertarians that believe in freedom, right, and want less government, and frankly hold people accountable. And Milton Friedman always famously said, he says, you're never going to get the right people in office. He says the best you can hope for is for the wrong people to do the right thing.
Like
so how do we find more ways to make it do the right thing?
All right. Senator, thank you so much for coming on and talking with us. I'm hoping that you're in favor of getting all those expungements through, and maybe you can be a part of at least some chance that we can get more people away from their own records, away from their worst day.
You got it. Thanks, Gary. Thank you all.
All right, take care.
Thanks, Senator Brandes. This is just a cool guy, you know.
Absolutely, and it's going to be hard to get bills passed without a friendly who talks to both parties, and that's constantly an issue that we got to deal with. We had some bills that the Republicans would take up, some bills that the Democrats will take up. The Democratic policies, oftentimes, even when they're totally bipartisan, like when Learned was working with Roche, and he got through a bipartisan bill. We thought, wow, isn't that fantastic looking at that? And yet the legislature turned it around and said, oh no, we can't have a bipartisan thing going forward. Let's just kill it because it's not 100% one side or the other. And we got to start moving away from that. And I just don't know how.
Well, I mean, Brandes understood that, this really represented his ideals and took forward. I mean, I remember at our NORML lobby days, I believe you were in the room as well, but seeing Jimmy Johnston, who was, dreadlocks and wearing his We for Warriors shirt, not exactly wearing a suit or anything like that. Not exactly, no. Not the typical lobbyist, a great freaking guy, but not the typical lobbyist. And sitting there in Brandis's office and saying, hey, is there any way that we could get free bed cards for veterans? And Brandis was like, click. That's an idea that I want to go for. And
we had it written up in 24 hours and filed, didn't we?
Yeah. So to have people, whether they're Republican, Democrat, Libertarian, who just want to do the right thing, I think is important. And it's a shame that one of them is termed out.
Well, to all the legislatures who are chiming in today or watching us on one of the replays, we have bills for you. Mm-hmm. we want to get them filed this year. We got a lot of them filed through Brandes in the last few years. We actually got one passed as an amendment in that the deadbeat dispensary bill. It basically stated that if you have a license and you spend 2 years and don't produce, you lose your license. And I think that is very, very fair, especially in the way that the market is working here in Florida. And I was absolutely floored when I heard the chair of that particular committee say, that was asked, is this a friendly amendment? And they said, yes. And I said, what? Our friendly amendment is actually friendly to somebody else as well. That's fantastic. But you think about it, we are talking about human libertarian rights, the right to work, the right to
free market,
the right
less government regulation,
the right to not be discriminated against because of using cannabis as your medicine when you're involved in healthcare, like institutions,
personal
hospitals.
Liberties.
Exactly right. The right to have reciprocity. So if you come to Florida on vacation, you don't leave on probation.
Yeah.
Plain and simple. We should have full reciprocity. We should have a wider expanse of qualifying diseases so the doctors don't have to twist themselves around into a reverse pretzel. Mm-hmm. I think that's a yoga position, but I'm not quite certain.
I don't know.
to get that done.
Been
And
a
of
while.
course, home grow, like you said, that's going to be very tough for Florida because the people who are currently in power can't seem to regulate it. Now, that is basically the issue. They're they say it's because of the fact they don't want diversion of product. It's people are growing the stuff in their backyard and passing it out for Halloween. That is not the case. I mean, face it.
Halloween would be a lot cooler if they did, though.
And the guys who have grow houses, they don't like the kids well enough to go ahead and give away their stuff.
Yeah,
They would rather make a profit from
they'd
it.
rather make money.
Which brings me to the next thing, because here we are in the state in the state of October. We are in the month of October, and of course Halloween comes up. Of course, all the scare tactic ads are out again, and I guess Grady Judd is once again saying, check your kids' candy for in my day it was needles and razor blades and apples, which was always kind of interesting. Then you had to have wrapped candies. You don't know if somebody's injecting something into your
more of
Laffy
a
Taffy.
chance that they'll pass out something that'll hurt than cannabis. But yeah, one thing that would be cool though for I think
I lost your audio.
okay. Oh jeez. Well, I'm still showing up there on.
Okay, I don't hear my earphones.
The fuck's happening?
New microphone.
I guess we do need a new microphone. I think
Okay.
it's working now.
Yeah.
But anyways, so one thing you can do to support us on Halloween is come to the Suncoast Normal Halloween costume party.
Yeah, but wait a minute.
Oh, geez.
What about our Halloween party?
Is.
Oh, okay. Is that what you're going to talk about?
Now it's on October 28th
Mhm.
from 7 to 11,
Yes.
and it's going to be a Stone Soup Company.
Okay.
And what are you going to dress as, Gary?
I don't know, because I haven't heard yet if naked is considered a costume.
Well, please don't show up naked. Please don't. The point here is we want people to go to the Halloween costume party.
I'll just tell them I'm coming as a werewolf. They never wear pants.
I'm gonna go as a pothead. I'm gonna put a pot on my head.
Oh, that's good. I was going to get you a Salvador Dali hat mask
So
to match your leg.
The first prize, the first place prize,
Yeah.
is $100, and I think I'm gonna add something cool in there from Jellum. I think it's gonna be something like a magical butter or something like that, something like real expensive.
And so we have raffles. We have entertainment.
Yeah.
Now, because of the fact that I'm into jazz and you're
Comedians
not,
and
you can tell
rappers.
me who we got coming.
So it's on this graphic here. It's
Ever-changing graphic.
It's gonna be DJ Dez, Greg Roy, Matt Fernandez, and Smokey. So Greg Roy and Smokey, they're reggae and rap artists, but Matt Fernandez is a comedian. And yeah, it's gonna it's gonna be a good time, man. It's gonna be tons of entertainment. Yeah.
See, I thought we were going to have a Cuban salsa band.
Nope. But
once again, you're a traitor to your race, but that's okay.
Of course, if you want to support us and you can't make it to the Halloween Bash on the 28th, you can join Suncoast Normal.
That's right.
Go on our website. You can either get tickets for the Halloween Bash on our website or become a member on our site. And if you're a member, you get that cool gold leaf pen that Gary's wearing.
Oh yeah. Right.
You get 25% off at Chill and Glass Country. Yep. And yeah, I believe actually, no, we have a VIP ticket for the Halloween Bash. That if you spend $30 on your ticket, you're going to get a free membership.
And what do you get with that VIP membership, Bob?
There's a free gift bag, and what do you get for the membership?
Oh, well, yeah, we can talk about the membership. We can talk about the event. That's cool.
I'm confused, and I think my mic is going out again.
Yeah.
Shit. I'm happy that I ordered new mics.
We are about as high tech as a flea, I tell you that. But that's okay.
But I think that's it for the show.
Well, we thank Senator Brandis for coming on and giving us his view at 10,000. Works his last 24 days of being able to cause as much trouble as possible in the Senate, and I wish him luck on doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, we are going to go back to talking about politics and who you should vote for, and get more politicians in here as we get closer and closer. And next week we'll be talking about the Pigford license.
Sweet.
and talk about how we are doing social equity here in Florida. One thing I did want to also mention, that's as far as news is concerned, over there on the West Coast right now, Vegas and Nevada, finally after years, they approved their rules, and now they are giving out applications for consumption lounges, which is a great way for
Sweet.
social equity folks to go ahead and get involved in the business, because there are licenses both attached to dispensaries and what we call independents, which do not have a connection there. And that allows for people to go ahead and get involved in creating a consumption lounge. And that's not easy to do, of course, because as with any kind of food service situation and all that, but you have to have all the compliance pieces in place. There is some easier way to go ahead and get involved. And I can tell you that because I'm involved in a organization called Bud's Place, which would allow you to have a franchise opportunity in the consumption lounge business, where everything is set up for you to make things a lot easier for you. So if you think you can get a social equity license, or even if you can't, go ahead and PM me. You know how to get a hold of me over here at Suncoast NORML. I can help you move in that direction, because we want to see more minority business ownership in this particular industry, because right now we're down at about 2%,
2%,
which
really?
is outrageous. Absolutely outrageous. It was 4%, and it actually dropped down to 2.
But then, yet most people getting arrested are still minorities.
Yeah, that is
Yes.
true. We always say that the industry favors people of color. I say not which industry, which color.
Man,
Because I don't see social equity actually getting done right yet
yeah,
across the country.
yeah, we still got a lot of ways to go.
Well,
My head itches.
on that note, we want to thank you guys for stopping by here on your Sunday. If you're in church right now, wake up.
And I just want to play this just to embarrass you.